Welcome back. I'll start with the definition of specialization. Specialization is the process of becoming an expert in a particular subject or skill. And the reason it is important to bring to light the issue of specialization is that from my conversations with people in the industry, I've had people get scared and say that there might be a shortage of clientele if they specialize in a particular field. And while I know that there are the normal fears, that have to do with rendering a specific service, I know that the industry is growing, and constantly and more now than ever, there is the need for experts in specific fields. So we can glance through the more obvious areas of specialization which people have taken up in the art department. Specific roles like, props master, costume designer, makeup artist, special effects makeup artist. These are all regular. These are specific, and we know about these roles. But there are a few other roles that are not as popular, but the demand for them has increased, and it's important that people know more and more about them. I'll list them out, and then I would attempt to break fairly down each role specifically. So the first area of specialization that I would like to talk about is the greens department. And the person in charge of that can be considered or called the greens man. And the greens department simply is the department responsible for all the greenery in any set. So whether it's potted plants, indoor or outdoor plants, or even a forest or a garden, okay, there is a need for a person to be responsible for providing that. And in some cases, you might require real plants, you might require a period of time to grow those plants, or you might require for synthetic plants to come in, depending on the condition of the scene. And depending on the requirements of the scene, you might shoot it at a time where it might not be convenient for real plants to be grown. Logistically, it might not even be possible to have real plants in those spaces. This is where, the person comes in and sources for the right type of synthetic plants. And for a long time, I've done that myself as a production designer and as an art director. I have searched for plants because I realize the kind of feel that plants give to scenes. They bring some kind of organic feel. They bring a softness to the set and all that. But I only realized a few years ago that that's a specific department, and the head of that department is the greens man. Definitely under the art department as well, but a specific responsibility, a specific role that is handled by this person. And one of the times I was doing research for a project that I worked on, I also came upon a situation where there was the greensman was also responsible for dealing with snow. And an interesting thing that I found out that he did when he needed to get a lot of snow, he was able to shred paper to very small pieces, and so they were sprayed down like snow. But of course, in a medium shot, you would never be able to tell. So these are some roles that it's important that people get into. You will always have scenes where you're in or out. I've always had a complaint with exterior scenes where the landscape is not properly groomed, the lawn is not mowed properly and all that. And now, it's quite interesting that I've come to realize that that is a particular department that can be headed by a person. This is one of the areas that I believe that people should take advantage of in the film industry in Nigeria to enhance the look of sets, whether it be exteriors or it be interiors. So the second department I like to talk about is one that has to do with weapons. And the head of that department is usually called the weapons master, or in some cases called the armorer. And The weapons master is simply the person who is responsible for any kind of weapon that will be provided or will be made or generally will be used on set. Now, in a lot of the epic series that I work on, there is constantly the need to have weapons. Weapons for the guards, weapons for the warriors, weapons for the soldiers, weapons for the hunters. And I have been torn between finding a balance of visual appeal and safety on set. These are some of the issues that the weapons master will be responsible for dealing with. Finding the best way to create realistic weapons while paying attention to the safety of the cast and the crew on set. And we built several weapons, from spears to swords to shields, to short knives to bows and arrows. And then in some, modern contemporary productions that I've worked on, there's been the need for rifles and pistols. In the case of the productions that I've worked on, they have not needed to be practical. However, there have been scenes where, there is the conversation with the VFX specialist on how to make them practical and all that. This is a responsibility, and it's key, because if you look at the genres of majority of the films now that we have in the country, there is the need for weapons. There is the constant need for weapons. And whenever weapons are showed on screen, we're constantly judging whether they're realistic, whether they look real, whether they feel real, whether their size is good, whether they can be practical or not, how they look when they're in use and stuff like that. And so it is a viable role to get into and to handle. And obviously, yes, you would need to work constantly with law enforcement agents, to get approvals, to get permits. If you need to import weapons, if you need to import prop weapons and all that. But, recently I had the conversation with a team member about the use of 3D printers to create some of these weapons. So this is a conversation that, I believe that more of us filmmakers should have, so that we can make sure that we are in a good place in terms of weapons provision, whether they're for period pieces or for feature or for modern contemporary productions. The constant need for weapons is on the increase. So it's important to get more people in to specialize in weapons mastering, weapons making, weapons supply, and weapons managing. Now, the third area of specialization that I like to talk about is the pack specialist. And this has to do more with the television commercial industry in the country. And what the pack specialist does is simply to take care of products that are being shot in a commercial and to ensure that they are in their best possible version or form. And the need for this has arisen because, constantly, like for example, in the case of alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, because they are mass produced, there's the tendency for certain things to not be in the best version by virtue of the constant wear and tear of transportation, conveyance of these items and all that. And then also because the labels are being printed en masse, there is the tendency for these printers not to be as articulate and meticulous in delivering on these prints. So what the pack specialist does is that he or she gets the soft copies of these prints. In the case of the labels, he or she has tools to buff the body of the products, or to get the products, looking in their best version in terms of cleaning them, or actually outrightly making new versions of these products. Also, in the case of these beverages, the actual liquids might not necessarily look good on camera. The responsibility of the pack specialist is to find the best mix that will allow for these liquids to be very well lit, and to come out looking as glorious and elegant on camera as possible without necessarily veering too far off the original colors, the original textures, or the original consistencies. And a lot of times this is what has been done, in television commercials. So the pack specialist is responsible for this. Is responsible for the look of the liquids, the look of the products, the look of the packs when it's being viewed at any point in time during the production. Now, over the years, there have been, foreign pack specialists who have come in to handle these responsibilities for Nigerian commercials. But this has been because there has been a lack of awareness to this role. But I'm very happy about the fact that now a few more people are getting into this role and owning the responsibility of ensuring that these products look as good as they possibly can be. Now, when I used to double as a pack specialist, as well as an art director, there were a few tools that I got to do this. Stuff like mixing glycerine in water to give the spritz for beverages to look cold like they just came out of the fridge, printing the labels on matte cards as against the glossy cards so that they don't bounce off light too much when they're being shot on camera, when they're being turned around in close-up shots, stuff like that. But right now, thanks to a good friend of mine who came into the industry through me and decided to specialize in packs now, happily he's doing all that, and he's been very, very articulate and meticulous at his job. He's done for a number of multinational products, and I believe that it is important that we pay more attention to that, so that even for film, when we have to shoot like fictional products in our stories, we pay that much attention to these products and we ensure that they come out looking as beautiful as they possibly can be. So the last area of specialization I would like to talk about is food styling. And food styling is, as the name implies, making sure that any kind of meal that is shown on the camera looks as beautiful, as gorgeous, as appetizing as it can possibly look. And this requires a special set of skills. I say to a lot of people these days who I've seen who have gotten into food styling that it is important to note that just because you know how to cook does not make you a food stylist. There's certain things that you must learn to enhance food, and it goes beyond just knowing how to cook. For instance, you have a lot of chefs now who are trying to be food stylists. Some of them are actually getting the hang of it. But it's like with carpentry. There is my set builder. He started out as a carpenter, and it took a while for him to recalibrate his mindset into understanding that sometimes it's not about completing it in the traditional sense of the word. It's about ensuring that the camera believes what he's done. And the same goes for food styling. You need to understand that if oil has been out in the air for a while, it no longer has its shine. So rather than taking the food and putting it back on the fire, all you need to do is gloss it up with a bit of oil. You need to understand, for instance, in the case of like plantain or fried yam, you need to find the best possible way to cut the slices so that they look as appealing as possible on camera. You need to understand the right level to which the plantain or the yam should be fried so that you have the golden brown feel, and so it's more about the look than about the health implications or certain things like that. So In films and in television, in TV commercials and in feature films these days, when you look at the food, how do you feel? And it's important to ensure that we start to pay attention to that. Food is an integral part of our culture. And if we want to project our culture in the best possible light, we can do that by making our food look as beautiful as possible. And you will agree with me that since time immemorial, food has been a regular prop in films and in television. So the need to make it look as beautiful as possible, is so important. And it comes from understanding the technicalities of food styling. What are the best things to do for meals? How is the best way to garnish meals when they are shown in front of the camera? What are the ways that you can quickly spruce up meals so they look fresh without you having to spend the next half an hour putting them on the fire and things like that? It is so important. And it also contributes to the general output of production design for any production. Now, these are the areas of specialization that I feel most inspired to talk about. I'm very sure that there are other areas of specialization that you can find and that you can plug into and that you could train yourself and start to operate in. Find where your strengths are, find where your passion is, find where you find joy in, and actually specialize in that area. And don't be afraid to hone your skills and actually become a force and an authority in that field. That's all we have for this episode. If you want more on the art department, tips and points and information, please stay tuned. Don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe. I'll see you next time.